And we will now continue with Utz by Bruce Chatwin, chapter 17. Marta was the child of a village carpenter who lived near Kostelec in southern Bohemia. His wife's early death from tuberculosis drove him to drink. In a tavern brawl, he almost killed a man. Ostracized, accused of the evil eye, he sent his two elder daughters to live with an aunt and took the youngest along on his travels. He found work as a woodcutter on Utz's estate at Tchecoslováquia. When he also died, crushed by a fallen tree, the bailiff evicted the girl from their cottage. She earned a few pennies doing chores for the baker or laundrywoman. Later, to avoid being sent to a workhouse, she went to live on a farm where she slept on a straw-filled pallet and looked after a flock of geese. She sang strange, incoherent songs and was thought to be simple, especially when she fell in love with a gander. Children in peasant Europe believed the tales they were told of werewolves, of stars that were ducks in flight, or the gander who turned into a shining prince. Marta's gander was a magnificent snow-white bird, the object of terror to foxes, children and dogs. She had reared him as a gooseling, and whenever she approached, he would let fly a low concerted burble and sidle his neck around her thighs. Some mornings, at first light, when no one's about, she would swim with her lover in the lake and allow him to nibble her long, fair hair. One morning, sometime in the late 30s, as Utz was driving his steer coupe from the castle to catch the early train to Prague, he caught sight of a girl in dripping clothes being hounded down the street by a mob of villagers. He braked the car and asked her to sit beside him. "Come with me," he said kindly. She cringed but obeyed. He drove her back to the castle. A new life opened up for her in domestic service. She followed her master's movements with an adoring gaze. Frequently, he had to prevent her from kissing his hand. 4 years later, when he had put her in charge of the household, his other retainers, puzzled by the habits of this solitary bachelor, spread rumours that she shared his bed. The truth was that, in a world of shifting alliances, and since the death of his grandmother's faithful major domo, she was the only person he could trust and, at the same time, use. Only she knew the hayloft where the Hebrew scholar Dr. Kraus and his Talmudas were in hiding. She would risk her life to fetch him food. Only she had the key to the cellar where, throughout the wall, the porcelains were stored. Later in the months after the communist takeover, when the peasants, still bemused by propaganda, believed that the new ideology allowed them to divide the landlord's property, it was she who stood guard against them. Utz was free to leave the castle with his treasures. In Prague, she slept in a leaky attic room a few doors down Sirovic Street. The terms of her employment she bridled. She was not Mr. Utz's employee. She looked after him merely as a friend. He, by inviting her to share his table, affirmed that the friendship was shared. Over dinner, he explained the reason for his journey. She dropped her knife and fork and gasped, "You're not ill, I hope?" He calmed her fears, but gave no hint that he might never come back. She would sleep, meanwhile, in the apartment, in his bed if she so wished, and kept the door firmly locked. His friend, Dr. Orlik, would look in from time to time in case there was anything she needed. The wine went to her head. She became a little flushed. She talked a little too much. For her, it was an evening of perfect happiness. At breakfast, she came back to make coffee. She helped Utz with his suitcase to the taxi. Then she climbed upstairs and listened to the beating of the rain.